Hello and welcome to week 6 in psychology seminar, and still getting my feet on the ground here, so I'm a little late in getting these videos out today. Here it's Wednesday as I'm recording these, but hopefully I'll be back on track this coming next week. So actually sort of a light time in today's class. In this week's class, we're really looking at just the special assignment Discussion B, Part 2, Discussion B, and I introduce you to the Ignorance Project, which is an organization that is simply trying to get individuals oriented toward fact-based research and knowing how to find what's really going on in the world, as opposed to the bias that we see within major news outlets. Now, we understand that bias is there, and if we understand that bias is there, we can consume those outlets, understanding that this is a point of view. It's not really per se that news is fake. There are lies out there. I mean, Fox News just got sued for what they said about the voting machines during the last election. So there is fake ideas that are out there, and we have to make sure that we show caution when we're hearing things that seem outrageous, particularly. But what's pervasive on our sources of information is that it's selective. Keep in mind that news organizations sell their product to an audience. And so therefore that audience is seeking out a particular message, a particular slant, a particular whatever, all across the board. That's just the nature of the commercialization of news. So there is this selective quality to it. Now, with that understanding, you go on to the Ignorance Project website and you take the Gap Minder test, which is a kind of a fun quiz about the state of the world and things that are going on and whatnot. And you take that test and you get a score, and it tells you how sort of aware are you of the facts regarding these particular situations. This is not a competition. These are not facts that are necessarily well known. And these are facts that are often presented in different ways. So it's not surprising when people get a relatively low score. So the goal here is that discussion is to take that test and talk about your results. Now, in the meantime, I'm also introducing Chapter 5, which is about reading. Now, none of this is due until next week, but it might be good to get started on Chapter 5, which has to do with reading a peer-reviewed article. This is an article that was published in a professional journal. The audience for that journal article are other professionals. You will go into there, and these are writings that are not really geared toward your reading habits or your reading style. They can be challenging to read. They're detail-oriented. They reflect the scientific thinking of the field. But nonetheless, they are where the primary source of evidence we have of coming up with ideas within the field of psychology. So I put into the course book in Chapter 5, again, you're working a little ahead this week because we only have that discussion going on, thinking about different topics, different controversy, different ideas within the field of psychology. I've actually posted a document in the course book that lists a whole bunch of topics. Then, if you haven't used it before, I'm introducing the use of a tool that has to do with large language prediction, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. You may very well have heard of it. You may be very familiar with it. Either way, I'm having you use this tool in a very specific way. This tool is evolving in terms of the role that it will play in higher education and elsewhere. And there are controversies about the tool, and certainly concerns about people using it to compose academic work, which is a form of plagiarism. If you get work from a source and you quote it directly without giving reference to, in this case, an artificial intelligence, then it's plagiarism. But ChatGPT is evolving some useful utilities in that, and one of those is the creation of research questions. And so when you look at the topics, what I want you to be able to do is to go into ChatGPT, enter those topics in the form of a question, kind of like Jeopardy, and say, create a list of 5 research questions related to this topic, and watch what it produces. And what it produces is really some very cleverly designed topic areas in the question format. And that's kind of a neat way of capturing AI's language prediction to create some ideas as to what you want to do your research on. You then take that question. That's the end of ChatGPT, because ChatGPT does not have access to real peer-reviewed resources which are hidden behind a paywall. Essentially, as a student here at KVCC, you have purchased what we have, our library services have a system called EBSCO. And EBSCO is a paywall-based, meaning we had to pay for it, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, for you to be able to go into that system, enter search terms, and find peer-reviewed articles, full text, without having to buy them yourself. It's very critical that while you're in school, colleges have the ability to get these articles for you. So don't be swayed into paying for any articles. There's always a way through our library services to get that. What I'm having you do next week, but starting now, is to pick a topic, use ChatGPT to create a research question. Then you're going to find one article that attempts to address that question in some way. It might only be part of it, because the papers don't necessarily completely answer questions. And so you find that article, and then there's a process of looking at that article and reflecting upon it. You summarize that article using the outline that's in the course book. You can start working on that right now. It's not due until next week, but it's a great time, because this is going to entail getting that document, picking a topic, using ChatGPT to create your research questions, and then ultimately getting into EBSCO. You have to use EBSCO, not another source, because one of the learning outcomes of this particular assignment is to learn how to use that specific tool through the library. You may have to reach out to our librarians for how to use that. You may have to look up tutorials on how to use that. This is something I want you to be able to use that tool effectively. It is a professional grade research literature review tool. It's what I use. It's what many people use when we're looking for the articles to support our research. So learning how to use EBSCO is the goal here. So you have time here to kind of wrestle with this, get around it, call, ask questions, meet with the librarians on the phone or on chat or whatever. They have all kinds of ways to work with you on this, and learn how to find and read a professional peer-reviewed article. EBSCO has tools where you can limit your search to peer-reviewed articles. So learning how to do that is a critical shortcut to being able to determine and make sure that all of the articles that you're considering are actually peer-reviewed articles. So learning how to do that is one of the major points of this. Second is the experience of reading an article of primary information written in a way that is not necessarily comfortable to read, because you as a student of psychology are not necessarily the primary audience of that article. It's meant for other professionals in the field, so the jargon, the statistics, the format of the actual document, these are all things that people are familiar with once they become professionals in the field. they've had this first experience too, to that format and that way in which information is transferred in the field. So that is the major aspect of that assignment, and that's for next week. This week, all we have is part 2, discussion B, the ignorance project, and the Gapminder test, and having a discussion about that. So I look forward to getting into that with you. I look forward to any questions that you might have with me about the assignment, although I'm going to direct you to the library staff if you have questions about EBSCO. I can answer those questions, but I would rather you interface with them directly and understand the wealth of resource that they are. They can even help you with search terms to get to the real answers to your question. I mean, they are an incredible resource on finding information. So maybe that's a side goal, to meet our librarians and realize how valuable they are. So I leave you with that. We have this week. Again, I apologize for this video being late. For my I've been traveling around and it's been difficult to keep up with stuff. That will be correcting itself over the next week or so, and hopefully I will be posting videos in a more timely manner. So enjoy this week, and I look forward to our discussions coming up, and take care.